How's Monday treating you?
Hey, Scott, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Jamie. How's it going? Hello, everybody.
Well, Scott asked me how Monday's treating me. Well, like a typical Monday, it was not that bad out there today as far as the market and things moving around in a crazy fashion.
I have time off
Um,
tomorrow and Wednesday, so it's like another Friday for me.
I'm jealous. You got any plans?
To be determined.
Fair enough. Okay. Once again, thanks everybody for showing up. This is Office Hours, December 6th. I'm your host, Jamie Hodge. I have Steve in here with me. And before we get rolling, just a quick disclaimer. Just want to make everybody in attendance aware of the fact that all the info that we share with you, whether it's this webinar or any of the other webinars that we have coming at you on a weekly basis, it's all for educational purposes only. Simply meaning, if you need investment advice, please seek out someone who is licensed to dispense that type of information to you, someone like a registered investment advisor, Series 7 licensed stockbroker, so forth and so on. We're just trying to share some cool content with you guys and, share a little bit of market content and how we might be able to find some interesting setups. So once again, if you need investment advice, seek out a licensed person for that. All right, so always like to take a little bit of time at the top of the hour here, especially for the new people, to let you know about the resources as well as the additional webinars that we have coming at you on a weekly basis here. Of course, if you're not taking advantage of the trading room, by all means, you need to get in there and do that as soon as possible. It's a great trading room. Could be 300, 400, 500 people in there on any given day. We have Barry in there manning the helm. Barry Anderson opens the doors 30 minutes before every open. Does a great job at moderating the room, keeping things civil, and also showing you how he uses the TI technology, as well as talking about his trading style and interesting things that he sees that might be setting up. Once it dies down after the first 2 or 3 hours, Barry also doesn't mind answering questions. So it's a great resource. It is free of charge. You don't even have to be a subscriber to get in there and take advantage of the trading room. Now, if you've done your homework, looked around on the web, you probably know that most trading rooms that allegedly are worth their salt, they're not free. Matter of fact, they're quite pricey. So it's a great resource. Get in there and see what it's all about. Now, we used to do these every week, but that gets a little tiring after a while. We did it for about, what, 5, 6 years, Steve? Now we're alternating every other week. So every other Monday, we got office hours with myself and Steve. Every other Tuesday, it's going to be Steve manning the helm with Trade of the Week and Andy Lindloff riding shotgun with him. Every other Wednesday, you get our CEO and founder, along with Dan Merkin, along with Brad Williams in there, typically giving you a peek at tech that might be coming down the pipeline that isn't necessarily in the production client, but always entertaining with those two. Every other Thursday, you're going to get Andy Lindloff and the Trading Studio, and I'm going to ride shotgun with him. Of course, every day, Monday through Friday, rain or shine, we're going to have the live support session. Each and every day is hosted by a different personality. So you get a little bit of a flavor of all the trader/trainer people here at Trade Ideas. But it's a great place to go get questions answered in a live environment with a nice visual as well. So that's every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. On the next slide here, you'll see how to get there. And once you do get there, it's very simple. trade-ideas.com/live. That is off of our YouTube channel, and it's a static address. So once you get there, just bookmark it for easy access. Same channel each and every time. Once again, from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. As far as educational resources go, the TI University is a great resource. As you can see here, we've got 4 different parts: 101, 201, 301, and 401. If you're brand new, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't knock out 101 and 201. It covers a lot of the basic functionality and will certainly help you get over the learning curve a lot quicker than later. When you feel like getting into back testing and the more advanced functionality, well, that's when you have 301 and 401. And the cool thing is that these are all hosted on our Trade Ideas YouTube channel. So if you just cruise over to the YouTube channel of Trade Ideas, look for TI University, you'll find these videos quite easily, and you can just start and stop them at your leisure as they are recorded there. All right. Interesting things going on in the market right now since we peeled off from the top and kind of started bouncing
Oh yeah.
around in this new little lower range that we have here, Steve.
Hmm.
So if you'd like to, I'll kick it over to you. We can take a look at those bigger tracking ETFs.
Sure. Let's do it. There it is. Let me catch the ball. All right, everybody, welcome to my desktop over here. I'll expand these out a little bit. I'm going to start today, actually, and we're going to look at the SPY, SP500 ETF in two different perspectives here. The first one, no moving averages. Excuse me. No moving averages and RSI. I think I was kind of mentioning a few weeks ago in different webinars that, the diverging top, I don't want to call it a top, but the diverging price action was raising red flags. And if you don't know what I mean, what that means is we had a newer high in the price of the SPY, but it did so with much less intent, giving us a lower high in the RSI from overbought to not quite so overbought, but even though it's a new high. We call that bearish divergence, and usually a sell-off can come after that. And so we have a sell-off. We just don't know how far, how deep this thing wants to go. So with that being said, one more thing I'll do, I use this chart only for RSI divergence and for anchored VWAP. Anchored VWAP allows us to run a VWAP off of a specific point in time. Well, such a point in time often could be a beautiful, juicy topping tail that was serving as this day's high, all-time high, but reversed. So that's a good place to pop that in there. And look what happens when I do that. It gives us this purple line, which is, well, how about that? It's been holding the price down a little bit. So there's some work to do there off the VWAP from the all-time high. And let's go back and look at the moving average picture now. All right, so a lot of you guys know that when I swing trade, once it breaks the 10 and the 20 moving average, I just want to get out because it usually is an early warning that the momentum has failed. So in the SPY, momentum has failed, but you can see that 50-day moving average has always been a very important line. It's pretty much been the trend line. Look at that, boom, 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 boom. Okay, broke it down here, had a little bit of I was very bearish right here. That was a very bearish sign, but the Fed has a lot of magic tricks up their sleeve to keep the market happy. So we moved up here to all-time highs again. We've done it again. We've broken on the price. The 50-day moving average has caught it. Quite a nice stick save, I'll call it, on Friday with the bottoming tail and then closing right at the 50. The NASDAQ did the exact same thing in the Qs. We'll look at that in a moment. What I'm seeing are two things, and they're still not healthy. I'm seeing a cross of the 20 down below, the cross of the 10 down below the 20, and the price action just keeps getting stifled as it gets close to, including today at the declining 10-day moving average. That tells me that this market is still a little bit sick until it can fight its way through that webbing and close higher. First order of business is to close a post a closing candle above this declining 10-day moving average. And isn't it interesting that I talk about these moving averages, and it just so happens that was our range today. There's today's high, there's today's low. So we've got this wedge action going on, and there's no winner yet. We're going to have to see what happens. Either we do like we've done in the past and grind back up and just keep moving up through the averages, or if we post a nasty close below the 50, even taking out some lows back here, watch out, be very careful. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you look in the history in the rearview mirror, like I said, the Fed has magic tricks up their sleeve, but all we can do is gauge that war of buyers and sellers on the roadmap here of a daily chart. So that's what I see on the SPY. I see a wedge building. Let's see how it resolves in the future. The 50-day is acting as the floor and the 10 is acting as the ceiling. In the NASDAQ, same kind of a thing. Caught the 50 on Friday, closed above, nice little bottoming tail of wick. So almost, they call these tweezers, actually. There's a term for when you see a move down and then two wicks next to each other, like tweezers would look. And that significantly, or traditionally, is supposed to be bullish. But we'll see, same things happening over here, excuse me, and the crossing of the moving averages. And we're not even near the downward 10 SMA yet. So the NASDAQ's a little bit weaker than the SPY in that respect. So keeping an eye on that. Let's look at the anchored VWAP on this one just for fun. So in case you want to know, you go up here to this tool right there and you find the anchor and we click on that significant candle. All right, well, a little bit messier than the SPY, but except for this day here, it can't post a close above that moving, that evaluated average price, anchored VWAP. So that's pretty much what I'm seeing. I'll just quickly look at the IWM, which is much below its moving averages and had a nice fake out breakout. But look, the IWM, the small caps, they're getting sold. Well, they're buying Tesla and buying Apple and the others and keeping your eye over here. You know, pay attention to the small stuff that we all see in our portfolios that have had a really rough time. This is very bearish. It's below all moving averages now. We're just going to have to wait and see what that declining moving average does to the price. And before I hand it off, I will say I saw somebody ask about GE. I'm always happy to, I'll just tackle that right now. So same situation there as the IWM, even though it's GE. It's not a small cap, but broken chart. This was a horrible failed breakout here. Nothing but red, bounce right into the 10 SMA, tells us downward momentum is in place again. And so we're coming up to another inflection point here. Will the price action post a close above that moving average, or will that moving average throw GE back to lows? If you back up in time, you could make a pretty good argument that there was kind of a pivot level back there. I'm looking, there we go. So you just draw a line like that. You can see resistance, support, support, resistance, back and forth. You can make an argument that we are at a level to buy, but I would wait for confirmation of a close or two below that declining 10 SMA. And that's all I've got, Jamie.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Steve. Let me grab it back here. Okay. Hopefully we're back on. Yeah, and here we have the SPY up again, and just as Steve was indicating, of course, it's a little harder to see on my screen here, that pink line there, the 50 period, which is why when I saw these compare count readings today, I didn't have a whole lot of hope at a lot of follow through to the downside. So just like I said right here, we did have a 67% bearish count in that first 15 minutes, but not really any help. You know, looking back here, if we flip back over to 15, it was just the opposite. So after this first 15-minute candle, we did have a little bit of a wick down, and then boom, just up for the rest of the day. Therefore, we had that gap, a little bit of a gap fill, and then boom, off to the races. So as long as the Fed continues to print, as Steve says, they've got magic. So we'll just have to see what happens moving forward. Yeah, and I see the user there that says waiting for name. If the web version is giving you some lag, then you might want to check your local network settings or any type of internet interference that might be occurring there in your home. And if that doesn't fix it, just hit us up in chat and we can try to help you troubleshoot that. Okay, so getting on with the program here, you know, typically we like to do the Holly recap to talk about the AI trades that went off for the day, but well, picture speaks 1,000 words here. Only 2 signals, which I was a little surprised. Only one from the original Holly Grail. We had one short being fired off from Holly 2.0. Neo remained silent on the day, which is a little odd, but hey, if the strategy requirements are not met, we don't get any signals. And typically when the, did I even have that on the SPY just now? There we go. Typically, when the market does get a little volatile like this, sometimes the AI clams up as that statistical noise gets in the way of the alpha hunting that the AI does. But really, nothing to really talk about here. There's no conservative versus moderate spread that we can, you know, choose to pick from. Just a couple of losers today. So nothing really to write home about there. Is what it is. Kind of rare, but happens from time to time. So not a whole lot of AI to discuss today. We'll see what happens on the morrow. But we do have some really interesting stuff to talk about today. Now, as you all know, I'm a big fan of the opening range breakouts, and there were certainly a lot of juicy ones today. But where we're going to spend most of the time today is in the new feature that we have with the real-time stock races, which is an offshoot of the top list functionality that we have. And me and the guys and gals have been playing around with this starting last week. At first, it takes a little bit of time to warm up to it, but boy, after Friday and today, I can certainly see where the value is going to come from in these things. And we'll get into some detailed examples of those uh, in a bit. First, let's talk about just some of the regular session, well, actually not regular session, some of the range breaks that we're keying off of right on the open, but based on the pre-market range. Because, as you all know, whether you're a seasoned trader or a beginner or intermediate, there are pros and cons when you trade off of the open. You might get into a really good trade and do really good with it. But it's really easy to get flattened on the open too. So there's a lot of fear factor going on the open. But when we start taking into account pre-market ranges, kind of takes the sting out, okay? Kind of takes the fear away. So let's take a look at some of those real quick here. And we're going to start with this one, AAL. So here we are looking at 15-minute candles on the intraday. The little mauvish part right here is the pre-market range. Look how pretty that pre-market range is. And while I'm showing you guys these charts, just keep this in mind. You don't necessarily have to do any pre-market scanning to take advantage of these because we're looking at them after the market opens, all right? So for example, AAL came through, my turbo breaks up based on relative volume today. This is a momentum scanner. Most of you are familiar with it, but in case you're new, it's a very simple momentum scanner, and this is the downside version. So if I just right click, give it the old configure, it's very simple. It's just new high is the alert, got 150 cap on the price, saying it has to have done at least 100,000 shares thus far, and a minimum relative volume of 3. All right. So right off the bat here, this morning, I get AAL in this candle right here, thus the blue arrow. Now, what do we have taking place there? Opening range break in the regular session looks exactly the same in the pre-market and vice versa. We get a nice tight range here. First candle of the regular session, boom, we get a crack through it, and our risk is clearly definable, taking those low wicks from the pre-market session. And of course, it's up to you whether you use the wicks or the candle bodies. That's more of a personal preference. But in today's market environment, I always find it more favorable to take the wicks because of the elbows that some of these algos can get in there and throw. But once again, it's personal preference. So a nice little run up in double AL. What did we crescendo at here? I think we got as high as 1854 right up here. So when we're looking at these things, we always want to have a little bit more reward than we do risk. So we got the nice risk area right here. And how many times could we pack that risk area into the reward area? Quite a few times, therefore producing a nice risk versus reward. Yeah, I see your question there, Joseph. Do you mark yourself the high and low of the pre-market, or is there a preset one? Yeah, these lines I'm adding myself just with the old right click on the chart, mark up and horizontal line. Of course, right at the open, there are no lines, but when you see something this tight, you don't really have to stop and do that. And that's why we look for the ones like this, right? Easily identifiable. So I'll make sure I drop these tickers into the chat window before we're done. So don't worry about that. I'll make sure everybody has them, as well as maybe some starter ideas for the races as well. But the thing about the races is they're so simple. We'll get into that a little bit later. Coincidentally, saw this AAL coming through my momentum ticker right on the open. And guess what? Later on in the day, it was ahead in one of the races that I ran. And once again, getting ahead of myself. So we'll get to that shortly. So this is a really nice pre-market range break. Let's just get in early. As you can see here, what's the advantage? Well, AAL, it never set up again for a nice range break, but it certainly did in the pre-market. So sometimes you're going to notice they set up in the pre-market, and at other times they'll set up in the regular session as well, giving you a chance to leverage that stock that's in play with high volume. So a really nice one, AAL, just looking at the pre-market, taking that trade pretty much in the opening 5, 10, or 15 minutes. Okay, GCP was a good one as well. Once again, for just the tameness of the chart. As we can see, this is the pre-market range right here. Boom. As soon as we open up in that first 15 minutes, just barely cracks it. So plenty of time to get in there, get the fill. Even if you took the top of that candle, still wasn't that big of a deal here, occurring right at the hole number 2. A lot of the times when trades of interest, or you get the signal right at the hole number, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In the older days before the market changed, and it's changed many, many, many times since Steve and Andy, myself, started trading back in the 90s. It used to be a strategy in and of itself because a lot of weird things happen at hole numbers. Stop losses get triggered for shorts, buy orders that are sitting out there to execute at the hole number get executed. So a lot of the times at hole numbers, you get a lot more action in there as well. So when I see something setting up next to a hole number, I consider that a positive. So you can see this one occurring right on the open too, nice and tight on the pre-market range. And before the day was out, we hit a high almost up a point. So not knocking it out of the park, but a decent mover, a nice little winner with very little pain here as well. Keep in mind the green line here, which is the 10-period fast line, controlling the action most of the day. So just a real low, what should I say, low stress entry here at the whole number right on the open based on the pre-market range, and a nice grind up for the remainder of the day. And of course, this was one of the stocks of the day, doing big volume and having a significant move here. Once again, check out the pre-market range and the first tick on the open, cracking right through it. So CPIX comes through 437, right on the open, and sets up again later on in the day for 80-ish. So that first signal coming right there on the open, right about 436, takes a nice little grind up. Actually, I stand corrected here. I think I was like, why am I not seeing that? Hold on. Okay, that's why I had marked this up in 5-minute intervals, or 5-minute chart here. So once again, we got the nice smooth pre-market activity. We got a breach of that on the opening tick. This went through a little bit of a wiggle. Let me just expand this out a little bit so it's easier to see. All right, so once again, we treat our risk just like we would if this was occurring in the regular session. Now the low back here in the pre-market, 408, so we get the break right here. It does give us a little bit of pullback, but only down to 415, whereas 408 or 407 would have been our stop, and then sets up nicely once again here at 9:30. Another leg up, consolidating for most of the day before, boom, we get another signal here, 12 p.m. my time, that'd be 1 p.m. Eastern, and then this thing just took off. The biggest, obviously the biggest move of the day. So this one gave us plenty of time to get in, right on the open. Another time to add about 9:30, and then here 1 p.m. Eastern time before the biggest move of the day, and the volume really just exploded there. So CPIX, great example of one setup right on the open from the pre-market, and then a couple more add-on opportunities there. You really could leverage this trade before, that was just an awesome move. And that was from 480-ish up to almost 750, I think. Yep, 749. So it's always nice when a lot of the this one came through, and then we also had in the regular session. Okay, so those are 3 good examples of pre-market activity. So once again, you can choose to scan pre-market, but when you're seeing these things come through, all you have to do is take a look at the pre-market. If it's very active and nice and stable, well, that's a good candidate. Assess your risk from the low and have at it. All right, helps take the fear out of that opening print or that opening entry, and then they may or may not set up for the rest of the day. Now the next one here ISIG, which once again, this ticker identified perfectly right here at this break. No pre-market activity. Well, we did have pre-market activity, but look how different this little slice of pre-market looks, right? Big up candle, then a retracement, not quite down to the low, right? But still coinciding with the pre-market break here, okay? In the regular session, this one just took a little bit longer. So right about 10:35 my time, 11:35 Eastern, this is where we get the signal. This little guy spits it out. And when you see something like that, that's what you're looking for. Then it just kind of hemmed and hawed for about 20 more minutes before, boom, taking that big leg up, and the rest is history. So nice little move from right about $8. This one topping out almost for a double on the day, 15.73, just about 27 cents shy of a $16 print there. So ISIG and both CPIX, some of the biggest movers today, give you plenty of time, nice clean signals, all coming from this little guy right here, which I'll make sure you guys have before we're done today. Okay, now let's talk about the races, okay? Stock races here, and there's lots of different ways that you can put spins on these races. We're just kind of getting our feet wet ourselves here. But the first example I'm going to show you, and actually I have to give Andy credit for this one, but once you get in here and take a peek, you're going to realize you don't really have to have much in the way of a filter set, because that's not what the races are really looking at. We're really paying attention to the columns and the ones that we think might give us the juiciest information, for lack of a better phrase. So for example, if I come in here to configure, all we have to do is set up our min-max pricing, okay? And where you might want to do a lot of segregating here as far as price is right now the maximum number of cars that we can have in a race is 20, all right? So, even between 10 and 30, you still might be missing some things. So, you know, uh, this is just an example, 10 to 30, 0 to 10, whatever you feel comfortable with. But the smaller the gap and increment here, the more candidates you're going to see showing up in the races, and the more potential high quality signals you're going to see. So we don't have to go loopy here on the filtering. It's all going to be focused around the sorting columns, right? So when we do have a top list that we want to run a race on, all we have to do is right click. That option is down here at the bottom, real-time stock race. Now this is available in the latest beta version that's currently available on the website. Now real quick here, a little glitch to point out, which will be fixed in the future. Notice my configuration box is kind of small here, all right? And race lanes is equivalent to number of cars, right? I'm trying to click it up right now, but it won't let me get past 5. All I have to do to get around that is expand my window out for some reason, and then I can go up to 20, okay? I'm still pretty certain that that is the max, yep. So just keep that in mind. If your configuration box is small for some reason, it's gonna limit the cars. As soon as you expand it out a bit, you'll be able to max it out at 20, okay? So here you can see under goal, the most popular, what I'm experimenting around with right now, to be quite frank, I haven't even really explored the based on value option yet, but I will for the remainder of the week. So this is all going to be based around time and how long we want our races to last. Now, I'll get into some screenshots of the ones that I did this morning, but I'm running on mine right now for 15 minutes, okay? So I ran about 3 or 4 races in the opening 15 minutes of the market. Then I did some for the second 15-minute slice of the market. And then I waited to the bottom of the hour, get the first hour over with, then run another race, and some pretty interesting results. So once you get all this configured, then we tell it what to sort by, okay? Those of you who have attended Andy's last couple of webinars, he brought out some pretty good points about change from the open versus change from close, okay? So I just left these as is, and we sorted by change from the open. course, it really wouldn't make that big of a difference if you left them both unchanged from the open. But anyway, of course, once the market is open, if I hit start right now, they would just sit there, as you can see, because there's not a lot of pre-market activity or post-market activity going on. But on filters that are active on the post-market, you would be seeing movement here. So I hope that kind of made sense to everybody. So once again, just to reiterate, you don't have to go bonkers on the filtering, just some basic min-max pricing, volume today, just so you make sure you're getting active stocks and not thinly traded stocks that are just sitting there. So let me pull up these screenshots and then I'll explain to you what I was looking at here. Okay, this was the first one. This was the opening 15 minutes. Okay, so what I did here is the two on the right here, I left as is, looking at change from the open, not change from the close, but change from the open. These two over here are the exact same windows, except what I did over here is I added relative volume as the tracking metric instead of change from the open. So after this first race was over, took a look, and this is actually right before the race was over, which, you know, when you start using these things, maybe you go a little early. Maybe if it looks like that car is going to win, you don't have to necessarily sit here and wait for AAL like we see down here to be declared the winner. That's kind of the way that I handled it today. So my perception, kind of walk you through what I was thinking this morning. When I saw SQQ leading the relative volume race, you know, I'm like, well, that's an ETF. I'm probably not going to have an interest in trading that, especially since it's a ultra pro short. Disregarded that one. Took a peek at ICPT. Well, if I could type properly. Now, this one did well, but when I pulled it up, it just did not appeal to me. Okay. And, you know, nothing out of the ordinary there. Sometimes they're going to look good to you and what you look for. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're still going to work, even though you decided, you know, not to take the trade. But just for posterity here, 5, 10, 15, that would not have been a bad entry in ICPT. I mean, you never would have been out of the money. I didn't take that one though, but it's good to see what happened, right? And that was based on relative volume. Now, I also looked over here at the ones that were up from the open, pulled up iTub. We were already, let's see, 5, well, actually 5, 10, 15. We were just in this candle right here, all right? So this wouldn't have been a bad trade, but just didn't move that much. 404 up to 411, right? But an up move nonetheless, right? But this was the one that really caught my eye that I participated in, AAL. 5, 10, 15, caught it right here. Got this nice little ride up, nice and easy. Now, an added benefit was that AAL, we've already looked at this one today. Remember, this was the nice pre-market setup that came through my high volume ticker right off the open with a nice pre-market setup. And then of course it ran the race here as well. So we get a little excellent buy signal here from the pre-market open. Nice little add opportunity based on what we saw the race come out as, all right? And that's always good when you see something else. You know, I can't call this a ticker window, an alert window. I mean, really it's a top list window. We're just looking at the data in a different capacity here, okay, which is a good thing. So kind of a double signal here. We got it from the pre-market range break in the regular session from turbo breaks up, and then we see it winning the race here. Another good entry signal here, and really a 15-minute opening range break. You know, that is technically what that is. We got the little red line here, which is a product of the alert in the window saying this could be resistance, but it cracked right through it, had a nice move up. Okay, so that was the first race that I ran today, and we got some really good results, with the exception of the ETF that came through. All right, let me get to the next set of races, and these were the ones that started 15 minutes into the open that encompass the second 15-minute block. Okay, so once again, I did the same thing. I don't know what happened to this one. Maybe I screwed it up somehow, but nonetheless, didn't really have anything, nothing, just a non-event. Now, once again, same capacity. Relative volume on the left changed from the open on the right. So, we've always had these crazy stocks coming through as of late. Could be a SPAC, could be an IPO. On a lot of these crazy movers, it seems like the warrants are leading the common. But interestingly enough, we had the warrant and the common present itself based on the price increments that we had set up here. So BZFD was the common. So let's just go to, well, let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this coming right about here, right about the 1270 level, and we did get a nice run up to 1470. So not a bad move, but boy, if you weren't managing your risk on this one carefully, it could have gotten you. Okay. Now, of course, when you see 1 day of trading, unless something's messed up, this is either a redone SPAC or an IPO. I haven't really bothered to put the time in to see what it is. I took a stab at the warrants today. So right here in this candle, that's where the signal came, popped into a few, and within 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, up 14%. Okay. So especially in experimental phase, like this, and this being a 1 day issue, I plugged out, didn't get the 14%, but still got close to 10% on these warrants. And on a day trade, hey, I'll take that every time, right? The common had a nice move too, but very interesting results from these races today. All right. Nice move in the common, nice move in the warrants. But boy, on this one, and especially once you get up that much, you got to be planning to take some profits and really, especially not letting things get out of control. Losing more than, break even once you're up 14%, or, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% under your entry price. Whatever your plan is, should be the same each and every time. So as long as you were maintaining your risk parameters here, taking a little off the table, this was a profitable trade in the warrants as well as the common. All right, so all the ones we've seen thus far are simply looking at change from the open, and then we had some interesting plays from relative volume. So the last race I ran today, and I did some more towards the close, I just didn't really find any good results. That's kind of common with trading in general. But here's one that paid really well, and you can see I went ahead and let these finish. We're seeing all the winners here, declares the winner. But this is the one that caught my eye, MCW, and this was about an hour into the open here. And it happened right here, okay? So number one, I'm thinking to myself, all right, we took a little, spill down to the 5. Well, actually, let me flip this back over to the 15 here. Still well elevated above the 10 period there. Of course, I've been more partial to 5s as of late. And you can see, came down here and kissed the 10 on the 5, acts as the guiding hand as well. Getting really close to that opening range break. I'm thinking to myself, okay, a little early, but it looks good. And the funny thing about this is that, well, it's the name. We'll get to the funny part in a minute. But this was all the relative volume. Okay, remember the ones on the left were the relative volume. Okay, so between change from open and then making some other ones from relative volume, not as many on the relative volume side, not as big of moves, But this MCW was just a solid trade. Never gave me any grief. Um, I got to be quite frank with you though. When I saw the name, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, because I live in a relatively small town of 120,000 people, and there's two Mr. Car Washes here in town. I had no idea they were public, and I certainly had no idea their market cap was almost 6 billion. But hey, you learn something new every day. So this was a beautiful entry based on relative volume with the potential of a secondary pattern playing out, which is what we talk about a lot in the Holly plays. But this one being generated from a relative volume race, clear winner, you know, by far. Then we had that secondary pattern play out. Excellent time to leverage that position. And just think, you know, if every trade was this well behaved, my sanity would be a lot better. I got to tell you, this thing just grinded up all day. So a really solid 4 or 5% winner in MCW today that I would have never seen if it weren't for the relative volume stock race that I ran. So, you know, right now my mind's zooming with, okay, it's all based around filters. What other filters might show me some interesting things like this? Could it be 5-minute change, 10-minute change, change in 60 minutes? A lot of experimentation to be done the rest of the week and the next week and so forth and so on. So, you know, if you're like me, at first when you saw stock races, you're like, well, how am I going to use this, right? And, you know, now I'm really warmed up to it and I'm seeing the power in it. And it really does just give us a new view of a top list and a way to perceive data that we would never grasp just from looking at a top list. Okay, so hopefully that resonates and makes sense with everybody. But really all you have to do is get in here and try out one filter at a time, and it's pretty simple to do. All right, I do think that is pretty much it for the day. Let me just check my cheat sheet here and see if I missed anything. I don't think I did. Yep, MCW was the last thing. So before we conclude today, does anybody have a question about the race features, how to access them, so forth and so on? Because just to recap here, once again, all you have to do is sketch out very basic filters, price, maybe volume today. And I would tend to go with volume today, not average daily volume, because you want to make sure these things are trading, right? If you put average daily volume of 500,000 in there and it's doing exceptionally low relative volume, that's not really what you want. Okay, so if you're going to use volume, I would go to volume today first. But of course, you can experiment around, you know, you never can tell. And then you just pick the columns, right, that you want to run the race from. So I was thinking about dropping this in there too, but it's so simple. You just make a top list, you sketch out your volume, your min max price, and then you just pick the filter that you want to run the race with. That's a good question, Joseph. And the question is, what percentage would you say pre-market high lows, and I'm assuming with the pre-market range breaks there, would coincide with race winners? Well, since I'm only about 3 days deep into playing around with these races, as well as everybody else here, it's unknown at this point. You know, we might notice a lot more. Could it have been luck this first few times? We'll just have to see until I get about 10, 15, 20 sessions under my belt. But if there is a correlation, it should rear its head, you know, as we continue to explore. When I click on the symbol beside the car, it stops and resets the race. Good observation there. I didn't really ever click on anything while the races were running. Looks like Steve says his does not do that. And Jeffrey, regarding your question about the DocuSign and the 5-minute above VWAP, well, you could always select VWAP as one of your columns. You know, whatever. Now I don't know if you were using the VWAP alert or one of the VWAP filters. But if it was one of the filters, then you could just organize your race by distance from VWAP, right? Instead of using change from open or relative volume, you would just install one of the VWAP filters. And let's see, you said above VWAP. So then it would start to show you all the stocks represented as a car that are above the highest VWAP there. So remember, when you launch a race, this is where you tell it to sort right here. You could base it on price and then sort from change from the open. In your case, you would add the VWAP filter and then sort with that VWAP filter.
Regarding that clicking symbol on the race to go load a chart, mine worked today. I suspect the beta version that was released to the public still has that bug in there. So
right.
Mine works today, but I've got a newer version. So the next version will be able to let you do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, and you make a good point. Slav is asking, have you tried running a race on the A table? Well, that might be a good idea. I mean, the possibilities at this point are pretty limitless. Well, they're going to be limited to our filter assortment, but a lot of
I've done it
filters.
before. I've done it with change from the close and let it run for 30 minutes, see which ones are moving higher in price. I've also done it with relative volume. Where I'm finding the most value is running it on my sector ETF board. I get 20 ETFs in there and I run it about 5 minutes before the bell and let it run for like 35 minutes. And at the top of the hour, I see what sectors are coming out of the gate strong.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take my sector map with the compare count windows and duplicate with races and see, see what's common and see what might not be so common. But, it's exciting because it's letting us rearrange data that's always been there and just perceive it in a different fashion. And that's what it's all about. So good stuff coming with the races. We'll keep on running them and we'll take it from there. So before I forget here, let me just drop these two windows into the chat panel. And then we'll let Scott walk us on out. All right, so these two momentum tickers have been added, or alert windows, I should say. And just remember, real easy with a top list, min-max price, little volume, add the columns that you want to run the race from, and then we just right click, real-time stock race, and set up what you want to sort by. All right, hope you guys enjoyed. Scott, if you're ready to walk us on out, we're ready for you.
All right, yeah, thanks, Jamie. So a couple items on the way out, just to remind everyone. We do have a new ebook out, the Strategy Indicators ebook by Dave Mabe, our Director of Software Development, the individual who started Holly and the backtesting module. So go ahead to trade-ideas.com/strategy, get that free download. We do connect directly to Interactive Brokerage to automate your trading. You can manage your portfolio and execute trades directly from Brokerage Plus with Interactive Brokerage. And as you know, they have one of the best short lists available out there. So go to trade-ideas.com/IBKR to learn more from Interactive Brokerage about what they can offer. We also have commission-free trading. If you have an E-Trade account, connect your E-Trade account to Brokerage Plus, manage your E-Trade portfolio and execute trades directly from Brokerage Plus and Trade Ideas, and do it all commission-free. You can learn more about that by going to trade-ideas.com/E-Trade. And we've got a new code for the holiday webinars. It's Holly Days, saves you 15% off your first month or year of Trade Ideas. Or you can do that to an upgrade from standard to premium and save 15% off your first installment. So use that code before we change it. If you have any questions, email us, info@trade-ideas.com. You can also find our YouTube channel where we have our live help on during the at noon Eastern on market days, youtube.com/trade ideas. Also find all our archived videos there. Jamie can be found on Twitter at QuantBot. You can find Steve at TISteveG, and also at Trade Ideas is one of our other handles. And you can find us on Facebook at Trade Ideas Pro. And thank you, Jamie and Steve. We'll get this recording up later on and send everyone an email reminding them how to find it. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Steve, enjoy your days off.
Yeah, Steve, have a good time.
Thanks.